All right, let's talk about something that keeps our digital world from completely falling apart: databases. Specifically, we're diving into the absolute bedrock of how they work, the mathematical structure that keeps everything orderly and reliable. We're talking about keys and integrity constraints. This is the stuff that makes sure your data is actually trustworthy.
Okay, so here's what we've got on tap. First, we'll tackle what I'm calling the database's identity crisis. Then, we'll unlock the solution with something called keys. After that, we'll geek out a bit and count the combinations. Then, we'll see how to connect different tables. And finally, how to make sure those connections don't break. Sound good? Let's jump in.
All right, section 1. Let's talk about this identity crisis.
So, picture this. You've got a database with literally millions of rows of data. Maybe it's for an e-commerce site, maybe it's for a social media app. How in the world do you pinpoint the exact record you need? I mean, what if you have two people named Sarah Jones who signed up on the same day? How does the system not get them confused? If you can't tell one record from another, you've got a recipe for absolute disaster. We're talking wrong orders, mixed up accounts, total chaos. So how do we solve this?
Well, the solution is actually a really elegant and powerful idea: keys. Think of them as the unique fingerprint for every single row of data. Let's break down how they work, because there's a neat little hierarchy to them. Okay, at the very broadest level, we have what's called a superkey. Now, don't let the name intimidate you. It's just any set of columns, one or more, that, when you put them together, guarantee that every single row is unique. So, for example, maybe the combination of email address and order number is unique. That's a superkey. It gets the job done, but it might be a little clunky. It might have more information than you really need. So, this is where it gets interesting. We take that superkey idea and we refine it down to what's called a candidate key. A candidate key is basically a minimal superkey. What does that mean? It means we've gotten rid of all the junk. It's the leanest, meanest version of a unique identifier you can have. If your customer ID alone is enough to uniquely identify a user, then that's your candidate key. And here's the cool part. A single table can actually have multiple candidate keys, all competing for the job of being the main identifier.
Okay, so you've got this pool of perfectly good candidate keys. Now what? Well, the database designer has to step in and choose one of them to be the champion. That chosen one is the primary key. This is it. This is the official, non-negotiable main identifier for records in that table. And there's a golden rule here, an unbreakable one. The primary key can never, ever be empty. It must always have a value, no exception.
So what about all those other candidate keys that didn't make the cut? Do they just go home? Nope. They get a new title: alternate keys. Think of them as the runners-up in the competition. They're still perfectly capable of uniquely identifying a record, but they're not the main one. And, importantly, unlike the super strict primary key, alternate keys are allowed to have null values.
So let's just put this side by side to make it crystal clear. You get one primary key per table, just one, and its value can never ever be null. It's the star of the show. On the other hand, you can have a bunch of alternate keys, or none at all, and they're more flexible. Their values can be null. So you've got your one reliable star, and then you've got your talented backup squad.
Okay, now that we get the hierarchy: superkey, candidate key, primary key, let's dig into something really cool: the math behind it. How many possible superkeys can a table even have? Let's find out.
All right, let's try a little puzzle. Say you have a table with 4 columns, or attributes, A, B, C, and D. And we know for a fact that column A is a candidate key. That means A all by itself is enough to uniquely identify any row. So the question is, how many different superkeys can we possibly make?
And the answer is 8. But why 8? It's not random, I promise. There's a really simple and powerful formula at play here.
So here's the rule of thumb. If you have a table with n attributes, and one of those attributes is a candidate key, the number of superkeys you can form is 2 to the power of n minus 1. In our case, we have 4 attributes, so n is 4. That gives us 2 to the power of 4 minus 1, which is 2 to the power of 3. And 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. See? The logic is that since A is already a unique key, any combination of other attributes you add to it will also be a unique key. It's like having a master key. You can attach any other keychains to it, and it's still going to open the door. But, things can get a little more complex. What if you have 2 candidate keys? Let's say both A and B can uniquely identify a row on their own. Well, then we use a neat trick from math called the Inclusion-Exclusion principle. You basically calculate all the superkeys for A, Then you calculate all the superkeys for B, you add them together, but wait, you've double counted the ones that include both A and B, so you just subtract that overlap. It's a clever way to make sure you're not counting anything twice.
Okay, so keys are absolutely essential for keeping things straight inside one table. But let's be real. The whole point of a database is to connect different sets of information. So how do we build those bridges between tables?
The answer is something called a foreign key. This is the magic connector. Think of it like this. You have a customers table, and each customer has a unique primary key, right? Maybe it's a customer ID. Then you have an orders table. Inside the orders table, you put a column that's also called customer ID. That column in the orders table is the foreign key. It's basically a pointer that says, hey, this order belongs to that customer over there in the other table. It's how we create those parent-child relationships in our data. All right, so we've built these nice, neat connections between our tables. But that brings up a whole new problem. What happens when the data changes? How do we make sure those links we just built don't snap? I mean, think about it. This is a really critical question. What happens if we delete a customer from the customers table? What should happen to all the orders they placed in the orders table? If we're not careful, those orders become orphaned. They're just floating out there, pointing to a customer who doesn't exist anymore. That's a huge problem, and it's called breaking referential integrity. Luckily, we have ways to handle this. There are two main strategies. The first is on-delete Cascade. This is the dramatic option. If you delete the parent record, say the customer, it triggers a chain reaction that automatically deletes all the child records, like all their orders. It's like if the customer is gone, their orders are gone too. The second option is on-delete set null. This is a little gentler. If you delete the parent customer, instead of deleting the orders, the database just goes into the orders table and sets the customer ID to null. So the order record still exists, it's just not attached to that customer anymore. This is only an option, of course, if that foreign key column is allowed to be null. So let's wrap this all up. It's really a two-part system. First, keys give every single record a unique identity, a name, a fingerprint. They answer the question, who are you? Then, integrity constraints are the rules of the road. They govern how all those unique records can relate to each other, ensuring that all the connections stay strong, logical, and reliable. They answer the question, how do you relate to everyone else?
Which brings us to a final, pretty important thought. If keys and constraints are the grammar of our data, what happens when we break those rules? Understanding this stuff isn't just academic. It's absolutely critical for building anything that works. Because when these rules get broken, it's not just about a few errors here and there. It can lead to complete data chaos and bring an entire system crashing down.